Have you noticed that something inside you has been trying to get your attention, even before you clicked on this video? I need to tell you something with complete honesty, because what I am about to share is not a conclusion I reached overnight. I have spent weeks examining every layer of this pattern, comparing timelines, studying the planetary movements, and connecting details that most people are simply overlooking. The deeper I went, the clearer one truth became. Almost no one seems to recognize the magnitude of what is approaching. That is not meant to create fear, it is meant to wake you up. In only 2 days, on Saturday, July 18th, the heavens complete an extraordinarily rare configuration, an exact trine between Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, an alignment that has not taken place for more than 600 years. On the surface, someone might dismiss that as just another astrological event, another date on the cosmic calendar. But I urge you not to make that mistake. This is not an ordinary transit passing quietly across the sky. I truly believe we are standing before one of the most meaningful cosmic openings that any living person is likely to witness during an entire lifetime. What has stayed with me throughout this research is not simply the rarity of the alignment itself, but the growing realization that its influence has already begun unfolding before most people have even noticed it. That thought has been impossible for me to ignore. In fact, I suspect that part of you already knows something is changing, even if you have struggled to explain why. Think back over the past couple of weeks. Has it felt as though your familiar reality has been taken apart and mixed into something unrecognizable? Have your emotions become harder to predict? Have your thoughts refused to settle into their usual patterns? If that experience sounds familiar, there is a reason, and throughout this video, I will carefully walk you through every piece of the puzzle. Before we explore exactly what reaches its peak on July 18th, there are 3 extraordinary breakthroughs connected to this portal that deserve your full attention. I believe these are not small adjustments or temporary shifts. They represent 3 profound changes capable of altering the direction of your personal journey, while also reshaping the larger collective story unfolding around all of us. The final breakthrough is the one that affected me most deeply while I was studying this cycle. It completely changed the way I understood everything surrounding this alignment, and we will reach that revelation later. For now, I simply ask that you stay with me through each step, because every piece builds upon the one before it. Whether you recognize it consciously or not, you are already standing at the threshold of an enormous turning point. The clues have been appearing around you for days. The only thing missing may have been the ability to connect them into one complete picture. That picture begins well before July 18th. Events of this magnitude do not suddenly emerge without preparation. Like the first distant vibrations before an earthquake reaches the surface, this portal has been gathering momentum for weeks. And if you have paid close attention to your own experiences during the last 2 weeks, you have almost certainly felt those subtle tremors moving beneath everyday life. The sequence truly accelerated at the beginning of this month. On July 4th, Mars formed an exact conjunction with Uranus in Gemini. That moment acted like the first ignition point. During the following 2 days, Mars continued activating every major planet participating in this larger configuration. It contacted Uranus first, then Neptune, and finally Pluto, each activation unfolding one after another with remarkable precision. Almost like watching a long chain of dominoes collapse in perfect order. That sequence was not meaningless. It was the initial spark that awakened the entire pattern. It was the moment when dormant potential became active. Looking back now, I think many of you experienced that ignition directly in your own lives. Perhaps everything suddenly began accelerating without warning. Conversations may have become unusually intense. Information might have arrived from every direction so quickly that your mind struggled to process it all. You may have carried an uncomfortable sense of anticipation, as though enormous pressure was building just beyond your ability to identify its source. Maybe there was a restless energy inside you that refused to disappear, leaving you with the unmistakable feeling that something significant was trying to emerge, even though you could not yet see its shape. None of that was accidental. I believe those experiences marked the moment the universe announced that a much larger process had officially begun. Mars did more than create temporary intensity. It physically activated the entire planetary structure that reaches perfection on July 18th. Every emotion you have carried since early July, every disruption, every unexpected shift, every feeling that the ground beneath your life was quietly rearranging itself, has been guiding you toward this exact point in time. Then another essential piece entered the story. On July 7th, Neptune stationed retrograde at the precise degree connecting it to both Uranus and Pluto. Whenever one of the outer planets appears to stand still before reversing direction, its influence becomes extraordinarily concentrated. Instead of flowing past unnoticed, its energy seems to settle deeply into the collective atmosphere, saturating everything it touches. Neptune, entering retrograde during this particular sequence, suggests that the boundary separating visible reality from hidden truth has become thinner with each passing day. Perhaps you have sensed that ordinary life has felt strangely unfamiliar lately. Maybe reality itself has seemed softer around the edges, less predictable than usual. Dreams may have become unusually vivid, carrying emotional weight that lingered long after waking. Some dreams may even have felt more meaningful than daily experiences themselves. That is the nature of Neptune operating under these conditions. Its purpose is not to confuse you without reason. Its purpose is to loosen your attachment to appearances so your awareness becomes capable of recognizing what comes next. Only a few days later, on July 14th, the new moon in Cancer added another critical layer to this unfolding story. I believe that lunation carried a remarkably clear message. Rather than encouraging constant action, it invited each of us to become quiet, to turn inward, and to examine the emotional ground beneath our feet. Because once the energies arriving on July 18th fully unfold, everything may begin moving with surprising speed. Without a stable inner foundation, it becomes easy to feel emotionally untethered by rapid external change. That is why so many people have recently felt drawn towards silence, solitude, or temporary distance from endless noise and distraction. If you have found yourself longing for peaceful moments away from constant stimulation, do not mistake that impulse for weakness or withdrawal. It may actually be evidence that your deeper awareness has already begun preparing for what is approaching. I can honestly say that I have experienced that same quiet pull within myself throughout this entire process. As we continue, the next question becomes even more important, because understanding why this alignment is so exceptionally rare requires looking beneath the surface of astrology itself. Once you understand how these planetary mechanics fit together, the extraordinary scale of what is unfolding becomes impossible to ignore. And that is exactly where our journey continues next. There is one detail about this alignment that completely changed the way I understood everything surrounding this moment. And once you see it, it becomes almost impossible to look at the coming days in the same way again. Around 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, July 18th, Uranus reaches exactly 4 degrees and 29 minutes of Gemini. At that precise instant, it creates an exact trine, a perfect 120-degree relationship with Pluto, which will be positioned at exactly 4 degrees and 29 minutes of Aquarius. Every measurement aligns with mathematical precision, even down to the final arc minute. In astrology, that level of exactness is never treated as ordinary. It represents a moment when the symbolism reaches its highest expression. What makes this especially important is the nature of the aspect itself. A trine is not an aspect built upon conflict or resistance. Unlike squares that generate pressure or oppositions that create confrontation, a trine allows energy to move freely. It encourages cooperation rather than struggle. Instead of forcing two planetary principles to compete for dominance, it allows them to reinforce one another, making their influence stronger precisely because they are working together instead of pulling in opposite directions. That distinction matters more than most people realize, because Uranus and Pluto are among the most transformative forces in the astrological language. Uranus carries the signature of revolution, unexpected breakthroughs, innovation, freedom, and the courage to overturn systems that have become outdated. Pluto governs irreversible transformation, profound regeneration, hidden power, and the complete process of death followed by rebirth. When these two planets meet through harmony instead of tension, change no longer feels like something that must be wrestled into existence. Instead, transformation begins flowing through existing structures with surprising ease. Momentum builds almost naturally. New developments spread rapidly, expanding beyond what anyone expected, moving across societies, institutions, and individual lives faster than people can comfortably absorb. That possibility is deeply inspiring, but it also calls for awareness because rapid evolution always asks us whether we are conscious participants or passive observers. Yet there is another layer to this pattern that made me stop and rethink everything I believed I understood about this event. Uranus and Pluto are not acting alone. Neptune is positioned at 4 degrees of Aries, forming a sextile to both planets at the same time. Suddenly, this is no longer a conversation between two distant worlds. It becomes an intricate, geometric relationship involving all 3 outer planets simultaneously. One planetary cycle extending roughly 500 years, another unfolding across approximately 84 years, and another stretching through nearly 165 years, are all synchronized within the same narrow degree range of their respective signs. When astrologers observe such remarkable precision, they recognize a formation known as a minor grand trine, often referred to as a magic triangle, because of the unusually balanced circulation of energy it creates. The probability of 3 outer planets organizing themselves into such a tightly connected structure within a single degree is extraordinarily small. These are the kinds of alignments that become historical reference points, because they unfold so rarely that entire generations may never witness another comparable configuration. Looking backward only emphasizes the magnitude of what is taking shape now. The previous time, Uranus and Pluto formed a trine stretching from Gemini to Aquarius, occurred roughly 3,400 years ago during the Late Bronze Age. That period witnessed sweeping transformations throughout the ancient world, reshaping trade systems, accelerating urban development, and expanding cultural exchange across civilizations in ways that permanently altered history. More recent trines involving these planets during the 1920s and the 1810s also corresponded with remarkably rapid periods of technological progress and social reorganization, moments when humanity began thinking differently about what was possible. Those historical parallels are fascinating, but they do not fully explain why the current alignment carries its own distinctive character. This is where the present cycle separates itself from previous ones. Earlier trines unfolded primarily through water signs. Their influence moved through emotional undercurrents, collective psychology, nationalism, and deep subconscious processes that gradually reshape societies from within. The alignment unfolding during 2026 is entirely different because it takes place through air signs. Air governs thought itself. It rules communication, ideas, intellectual exchange, information systems, learning, language, networks, and the invisible architecture through which knowledge moves across humanity. That means the greatest revolution emerging through this portal is unlikely to begin with physical structures alone. Instead, it begins inside perception. It transforms cognition before it transforms institutions. It changes the way information is created, shared, interpreted, and trusted. It reshapes the mechanisms through which human beings understand reality itself. Once that realization settled in, the first major breakthrough connected to this portal became impossible to ignore. I believe the first transformation reaches directly into your own mind because Uranus now occupies Gemini, the sign associated with thinking, communication, language, curiosity, and the mental processes through which every experience gains meaning. Imagine a brilliant flash of lightning passing directly through the nervous system of collective consciousness. That image comes remarkably close to the symbolic expression of Uranus moving through Gemini. Everything accelerates. Familiar assumptions begin dissolving. Mental structures that once seemed permanent suddenly reveal their limitations. Long-established ways of interpreting reality become too small for the expanding awareness now pushing against them. When Uranus forms this harmonious trine with Pluto from Gemini, the effects become visible on the collective stage as extraordinary advances in technology, particularly within artificial intelligence and machine learning. Progress no longer unfolds through slow, predictable improvement. Instead, innovation expands with astonishing speed. Concepts that once seemed experimental rapidly become part of everyday infrastructure. Ideas spread across global networks almost instantly. Information travels with an intensity that challenges humanity to adapt more quickly than ever before. Yet as significant as those collective developments may be, I believe the deepest expression of this breakthrough unfolds inside each individual person. This is not only about external technology, it is about the technology of your own consciousness. It is about the beliefs you have carried for years, without questioning whether they still belong to the person you are becoming. It is about familiar thought patterns that have quietly directed your decisions while remaining almost invisible because repetition made them feel normal. It is about the personal stories you have repeated regarding your identity, your limitations, your future, and what you believed could or could not happen in your life. This alignment does not politely suggest that you reconsider those internal narratives. It asks for something much more complete. It invites a total renewal of perspective. The remarkable gift of a trine is that this transformation does not require unnecessary struggle. Instead of breaking your old beliefs through painful confrontation, clarity may arrive with surprising gentleness. A single realization can suddenly illuminate what confusion concealed for years. A truth that remained hidden, despite countless attempts to understand it, may finally become unmistakably obvious. It is similar to spending years trying to focus on a distant landscape through blurred vision, only to discover that one quiet adjustment allows everything to come into perfect focus at once. That is the doorway now beginning to open. And as we continue, you will see why this first breakthrough becomes the foundation for everything else that follows. What if the uncertainty you have been wrestling with is not a sign that something inside you is falling apart, but evidence that something far greater is finally coming together? Pause for a moment and think about the changes you have noticed within yourself during these past several days. Maybe beliefs that once felt unquestionable no longer seem as solid. Maybe people you once understood so easily now appear completely different, almost as if you are seeing through a new set of eyes. Perhaps situations that once triggered the same predictable emotional response suddenly feel strangely neutral, leaving you wondering why your reactions have changed. I do not believe those experiences are random, and I certainly do not believe they mean you are losing your direction. I believe they reveal that your consciousness is adjusting to meet the reality that is beginning to unfold ahead of you. Every major shift starts long before the outer world reflects it. First, the mind begins reorganizing itself. Then, perception changes. Only after that does life itself begin to mirror the transformation taking place within. If flashes of understanding have appeared unexpectedly over the last few days, moments when an answer arrived with remarkable clarity before you even had time to analyze the question, do not dismiss them. If solutions have surfaced without endless overthinking, if hidden patterns suddenly became obvious, or if truths you struggled to understand for months now seem completely self-evident, pay close attention. I believe those moments represent the earliest expression of the first breakthrough connected to this extraordinary portal. They are gentle signals that your inner landscape is already evolving before the alignment reaches its exact perfection. The question is not whether the process has begun. The question is whether you are willing to trust what your own awareness is already trying to show you. That naturally leads us toward the next transformation, because the evolution of your thinking is only the beginning. The movement of power itself is changing, and as power changes, every meaningful relationship surrounding your life begins changing with it. The second breakthrough is rooted in Pluto, traveling through Aquarius, and I genuinely believe its influence reaches far beyond political systems or historical trends. It extends directly into the way you connect with every important person and every structure that shapes your daily existence. Pluto has always represented profound transformation, and while moving through Aquarius, its purpose becomes unmistakable. It dismantles concentrated authority. It gradually dissolves old systems built upon rigid control, where influence remains locked in the hands of a limited number of institutions or individuals. In their place, new models begin emerging that rely upon shared participation, interconnected communities, and collective intelligence. Instead of power descending from the highest levels toward everyone else, influence begins flowing outward across expanding networks. When Uranus forms its harmonious trine from Gemini, this transition gains remarkable momentum. Ideas begin spreading more rapidly than traditional systems can absorb them. Innovation moves with extraordinary speed. New financial models, collaborative communities, and organizational structures appear from the ground upward, shaped by flexibility, adaptability, and rapid communication, instead of inflexible hierarchy. Those collective developments are fascinating. But the most meaningful expression of this breakthrough unfolds much closer to home. The same planetary forces transforming institutions also illuminate the invisible power dynamics inside your personal relationships. Pluto never limits its work to governments or organizations. It reaches directly into your closest connections, revealing where balance has quietly disappeared. The beauty of a trine is that change does not require devastation. You are not being asked to destroy your life in order to transform it. You are not being pushed toward unnecessary conflict or dramatic endings. Instead, this alignment supports thoughtful reorganization. It creates opportunities to release unhealthy patterns while preserving everything that continues supporting your growth. Think honestly about the relationships that have demanded more from you than they have returned. Consider the situations where maintaining peace required diminishing your own voice, where giving became habitual while receiving became increasingly rare. Reflect upon the moments you accepted emotional imbalance simply because it felt easier than confronting it. I believe this portal opens space for those patterns to evolve naturally. Because the energy is harmonious rather than confrontational, transformation may arrive quietly instead of explosively. Certain relationships may simply lose their momentum without bitterness or resentment. Distance may appear naturally because both people are moving toward different futures. There does not have to be chaos for change to be real. Sometimes the deepest transformation arrives through peaceful recognition rather than emotional conflict. As outdated dynamics gently dissolve, new possibilities begin entering the spaces they leave behind. Relationships built upon mutual respect become easier to recognize. Connections rooted in shared freedom rather than dependence begin attracting your attention. You may discover people whose presence strengthens your energy instead of exhausting it. Individuals who encourage your expansion rather than asking you to become smaller for their comfort. Partnerships begin reflecting genuine growth, where both people evolve together instead of one person sacrificing their own development for the other. I truly believe this transit supports that possibility. but it also asks for your willingness to release patterns that no longer belong in the life you are creating. I understand how difficult that can feel, because familiar dynamics often appear safer than unfamiliar freedom. Yet the remarkable quality of this alignment is that it softens the process. What normally feels impossible may now unfold with surprising ease because the cosmic current itself supports healthy restructuring. Ask yourself whether certain people have recently begun drifting toward the edges of your life without obvious explanation. Ask yourself whether new individuals have entered your world carrying a sense of authenticity that immediately feels different from what you experienced before. If either of those patterns sounds familiar, I do not believe they should be dismissed as coincidence. I believe the second breakthrough has already begun expressing itself through the changing landscape of your relationships. Yet even these transformations rest upon something even deeper, something almost invisible. And this final breakthrough is the one that completely changed my perspective while studying this extraordinary alignment. In many ways, I believe it becomes the foundation supporting everything else. Without this deeper awakening, the other breakthroughs cannot fully take root. This final shift emerges through Neptune in Aries, positioned at the highest point of the magic triangle formed with Uranus and Pluto. Neptune has always represented spirituality, transcendence, intuition, and the mysterious space where the visible world gradually blends into the unseen. While moving through Aries, however, its message becomes intensely personal. It refuses passive spirituality. It refuses borrowed beliefs. It refuses a path defined only by inherited traditions or comfortable ideas accepted without genuine experience. Neptune in Aries asks a question that cannot be answered by anyone else. It asks who you truly are beneath every expectation, every social role, every identity handed to you by family, culture, or circumstance. It asks what remains when every borrowed definition falls away. It asks where your own truth lives beneath the endless noise of an accelerating world. That question is not merely philosophical. It becomes deeply practical because everything else unfolding through this remarkable alignment ultimately depends upon your willingness to answer it honestly. And understanding why that question matters so profoundly brings us directly into what comes next. The reason I believe this final breakthrough deserves more attention than almost anything else is because it gives meaning to everything surrounding it. Think about the pace of what is already unfolding. The first breakthrough transforms the way the mind processes reality. The second reshapes systems, relationships, and the distribution of power. Technology continues accelerating. Information multiplies faster than anyone can comfortably absorb. Structures that once appeared permanent are beginning to reorganize. Every part of the collective seems to be moving with increasing speed. Yet, there is an important question hidden beneath all of that movement. What happens if the world changes faster than your inner foundation can support? Without something steady inside you, acceleration stops feeling exciting and begins feeling overwhelming. Instead of clarity, there is confusion. Instead of opportunity, there is anxiety. Instead of freedom, there is the quiet fear of losing yourself in constant motion. That is exactly why Neptune occupies the highest point of this remarkable geometric pattern. I believe its position carries a profound message. The expansion of knowledge and the transformation of society cannot truly serve you if they disconnect you from your deepest center. Brilliant ideas without genuine purpose eventually lose direction. Extraordinary progress without emotional and spiritual grounding becomes empty. Innovation that races ahead without awareness carries consequences that are impossible to ignore. I am not suggesting that every person will suddenly experience an instant spiritual awakening overnight, because no one can honestly promise that. What I do believe is that this portal creates an unusually rare opening where inner wisdom becomes easier to recognize. Intuition may begin speaking with greater confidence. Feelings that once seemed impossible to explain may finally become understandable. Quiet truths that have lived beneath the surface for years may begin revealing themselves with surprising simplicity. If you have recently felt drawn toward practices that never interested you before, whether that means meditation, energy work, journaling, or simply spending quiet time in nature, searching for a deeper sense of connection, I would encourage you not to dismiss those impulses. I do not believe they are random distractions or temporary phases. I believe they reflect Neptune gently guiding your attention toward exactly what your spirit requires during this extraordinary period. Somewhere within you already understands that the external world is evolving too quickly to become the source of lasting stability. Because of that, your awareness is naturally being directed inward instead of outward. At its deepest level, this is what I believe the portal on July 18th truly represents. Yes, it reflects technological acceleration. Yes, it speaks about changing systems and collective evolution. Yet beneath every visible transformation lies something even more important. It is an invitation to discover the part of yourself that remains calm, regardless of how rapidly the world changes around you. That steady place within your own being becomes the foundation supporting every other breakthrough. It is the center that keeps everything else from falling apart. If hearing that awakens something inside you, if part of you immediately recognizes those words without needing further explanation, I want you to trust that feeling. You are not imagining it. I believe you are responding to exactly what this moment is asking you to recognize. Understanding that inner foundation also helps explain why the days following July 18th carry such remarkable importance. The portal is not a single isolated event that suddenly appears and disappears. Instead, its influence continues expanding. On July 20th and 21st, Jupiter in Leo forms a direct opposition to Pluto, a trine to Neptune, and a sextile to Uranus, all occurring at that same fourth degree. Jupiter has always symbolized expansion, amplification, and the ability to make existing energies impossible to overlook. While traveling through Leo, it insists that these transformations cannot remain hidden within theory or private reflection. They must become visible, personal, and fully experienced. As a result, whatever begins emerging around July 18th is unlikely to remain subtle for long. Insights become stronger. Understanding becomes more certain. Quiet changes unfolding behind the scenes begin revealing themselves in unmistakable ways. If clarity arrived as a brief realization, it grows into lasting conviction. If a relationship naturally faded, the empty space it created begins revealing its deeper purpose. If your attention has quietly been pulled toward a new direction, that attraction becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. The unfolding story continues on July 26th, when Saturn stations retrograde in Aries. Saturn represents discipline, structure, responsibility, and the process of building something capable of enduring over time. Whenever Saturn appears to stand still before reversing direction, it encourages careful reflection rather than immediate expansion. It is almost as though the universe temporarily pauses external construction, so you can examine the strength of your internal foundation. After moving through such an extraordinary sequence of planetary events, this moment invites integration. Rather than rushing ahead, it encourages you to absorb everything that has changed, making certain your new perspective rests upon something stable before additional growth begins. Then the month reaches its emotional culmination on July 29th with the full moon in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto. I believe this lunation functions like a powerful light shining across everything transformed throughout the entire sequence. It becomes increasingly difficult to ignore how much has shifted, whether within the collective, inside your relationships, or deep within your own identity. That realization may include moments of discomfort, because genuine growth often requires leaving familiar versions of ourselves behind. Even so, I believe many people will recognize that they no longer feel exactly the way they did before this journey began. There may be a greater sense of lightness, increased clarity, and a stronger connection with what genuinely feels true. As we approach the exact perfection of this alignment with only 2 days remaining, there are several reflections I sincerely hope you carry with you. First, recognize what has already begun changing. The breakthroughs are not waiting for July 18th to exist. The activation that unfolded during early July already placed the entire process into motion. Look carefully at your own experiences. Consider what has naturally fallen away. Notice which new ideas continue returning to your awareness. Observe how your thinking, your relationships, and the way you move through everyday life have already begun evolving. Acknowledge those changes instead of dismissing them as coincidence. Second, remain grounded. That advice may sound remarkably simple, yet I believe it carries enormous importance. The recent Cancer new moon encouraged exactly this kind of preparation. Because the energy moving through this portal primarily influences the mind, remaining connected to your body, your emotions, and your immediate reality becomes essential. Without that inner stability, rapid movement can easily scatter your attention. Spend time outdoors. Allow yourself to move physically. Create enough silence that your own inner voice becomes louder than the endless noise surrounding you. Finally, avoid resisting the transformation itself. Remember that this alignment unfolds through a trine. Its nature is cooperative rather than confrontational. These changes do not require unnecessary pain, yet they do ask for openness. Holding tightly to outdated beliefs, relationships, or structures simply because they feel familiar may create unnecessary friction. Choosing instead to move with the current, trusting the unfolding process even when every answer has not yet appeared, allows the harmony of this alignment to support you instead of challenge you. I genuinely believe that many people will be surprised by the opportunities revealed through that willingness. The portal reaching perfection on July 18th represents an exceptionally rare event. 3 outer planets aligning within the same degree while forming this precise geometric relationship and expressing such powerful cooperative energy is something that may occur only once across several lifetimes. The fact that you are living through this moment carries meaning. I do not believe it represents punishment or some cosmic test designed to break you. I believe it reflects the universe reorganizing itself around new possibilities, opening pathways that previously did not exist, and inviting you toward a version of yourself that has quietly been preparing for exactly this chapter. I suspect you are already far more prepared than you currently realize. You have felt the gradual build-up. You have noticed subtle changes unfolding within your own experience. Even finding yourself here, listening to this message, may simply reflect that some deeper part of you has already recognized the significance of what is approaching. During these remaining 2 days, choose presence over distraction. Move through them intentionally. And when July 18th arrives, allow yourself to receive whatever insight, understanding, or transformation this extraordinary alignment may reveal. I truly believe what waits beyond this portal has the potential to reshape your future in ways that remain difficult to imagine today. And I do not say that casually. Before we close, I simply want to thank you for staying with me throughout this entire journey. Your time and attention mean more than you probably realize. If this message spoke to something meaningful within you, and you would like to continue exploring these kinds of conversations together, I would sincerely appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. I would also love to hear about your own experience. Share what these past couple of weeks have felt like for you. Have you sensed this gradual build-up? Have unexpected changes already begun appearing in your life? I read every comment, because I genuinely care about understanding what this journey has looked like for each of you. None of us is moving through this remarkable period alone. Take good care of yourself, and I look forward to meeting you again in the next video.